we're going to work through all of the runes on Season of Discovery that we know about from BlizzCon, funny enough. We've already looked at Paladin. If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. Today, we're going to look at all the Druid runes, and I'll just give you my thoughts on them, really. We've only got until the 30th of November to wait before we can actually start playing around with all of this and working out where they come from, because if you're not aware, the runes are discovered. You're not going to just learn these from a trainer. You literally will learn them by just exploring and doing new stuff and going to places potentially you've not been before in vanilla, and you might find a chest or a breadcrumb quest chain or something, you know. It's going to be really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to finding all of it out for not just myself, but the community that we're going to be playing together in and sharing it all with you. So be sure to subscribe. Let's look at the Druid runes. You can put runes on your chest, your legs, and your gloves as you discover them. It looks to me, just looking at all of the classes, like the glove runes are your staple ability runes. What I mean by this is, imagine in future expansions when you finally become a feral druid, or you finally become a windwalker monk, or whatever you pick, whatever expansion you're playing, you normally get that one ability, you know, that one cool ability that really makes you the spec that you are. The glove runes look like that's what's covered. So I'd imagine you're going to get the glove runes very early. The first rune is Sunfire, which burns the enemy for 55 to 65 nature damage, and then an additional 110 over 12 seconds. In addition, while in bear form, cat form, or dire bear form, your Moonfire is replaced with Sunfire Bear, Sunfire Cat, and the spell benefits from and triggers all effects associated with Moonfire. So that's really cool when you're like kiting, or even potentially you need to go in bear for a second if you're leveling as a balanced druid. That's pretty cool. But obviously we're not unfamiliar with Sunfire. You know, we've seen Sunfire, you know, in many versions of the game. You're going to get it in vanilla as a Boomy, because you would use it as a Boomy, because let's face it, Lacerate for your gloves lacerates the enemy target, making them bleed for 42 damage over 15 seconds, plus 20% weapon damage per existing application of Lacerate on the target, and this causes a high amount of threat, and it stacks 5 times. Again, we're not unfamiliar with Lacerate, but as a tanking druid, you would assume Lacerate on your gloves is going to be the one that you pick. Whereas Wild Growth does exactly what Wild Growth does in all the other games, where it will do a party-wide hot over 7 seconds, and the amount healed is applied quickly at first and slows down as Wild Growth reaches its full duration. There's your Resto Druid gloves. And finally, for feral DPS, you're going to get Mangle. So mangle the target for 160% normal damage and causes the target to take 30% additional damage from bleed effects and shred for 1 minute. This ability benefits from and triggers all effects associated with claw and maul. So anywhere in talents where it reduces the energy cost of claw or increases the damage of maul, mangle is also going to benefit from it as well. You'll notice this when we look through all of the classes. As I say, so far we've only done Paladin and now Druid, but the gloves seem to be the early rune that you're probably going to pick up in the starting zone. Moving on to the chest, the first one is Survival of the Fittest. This reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by melee attacks by 6% and reduces all damage taken by 10%. Damage taken reduced by an additional 10% while in bear form or dire bear form. So this is an interesting one because it has actually got uses outside of just being in bear form. So outside of just being a tank, this can be useful. But obviously, it does make you crit immune, so essentially as any spec, even if you was a Boomy, let's say you was going down the balanced talent tree, you could slot this onto your chest, essentially going bear form and tank, and you'll be uncrittable. Next up on the chest is Living Seed. So when you critically heal your target with any healing spell, you plant a Living Seed on the target for 30% of the amount healed. This seed will bloom when the target is next attacked. It seems fairly obvious that that would be for the healers. There's not really a lot to say there. Now, this one is bloody amazing. Wild Strikes. While you're in cat form, bear form, or dire bear form, party members within 20 yards gain increased combat ferocity. Each melee hit has a 20% chance of granting the attacker an extra attack with 20% additional attack power. No effect if the party member is already benefiting from Wind Fury Totem. I spoke about this in the Paladin video, so this is purely because you're going to have Shamans on the Horde, you're going to have Paladins on the Alliance, so this is how the Alliance can get Wind Fury. I would have naturally assumed it would have been a rune that went on a Paladin, because you'd have the Shaman abilities, you know, on the Paladin, Paladins on the Shaman, but I actually find it really fitting on a Feral Druid. I think that's really cool. Unfortunately, it's going to be one of those that is far more beneficial for the Alliance, as you would imagine. You know, on the Horde, you're probably going to get a free chest rune, essentially, because as long as you've got a Shaman with you, you might not need to use this, whereas I think most Alliance Druids will almost be expected to be using this. But luckily, the only other one that you'll be able to get up until 25 is Fury of the Storm Rage, which reduces the mana cost of Wrath by 100%, and each time you deal damage with Wrath, you have a 12% chance your next cast of Healing Touch within 15 seconds to become instant. Now, you probably see that as quite a strange one, because you're like, that is actually a healing talent for later on in the expansion. But actually, as a Boomy, or just leveling as balance, having no mana cost on Wrath, because mana, I don't know if it's going to be an issue in Season of Discovery, but it has been an issue in Vanilla, especially for Boomies. That's quite cool. You can help out by throwing the odd healing touch around when you get it proc, and your Wrath is free. So yes, you're still going to spend mana on Starfire and stuff, but you can always press something, no matter even if you're room. Those chests are really weird runes, because they do definitely cater themselves just to each individual spec, and there's not a lot to play with. But moving on to the legs. Legs appear to be where you're going to get a nice big ability, so I would expect these ones to actually come a little bit later. But for the Boomy, you're going to get Star Surge. You launch Surge in Stellar Energies that cause 57 to 70 arcane damage, and Star Surge benefits from and triggers most talents and effects that trigger or benefit from Wrath and Starfire. So again, this is going to be things that increase your crit damage of Starfire and Wrath, increases your damage in general of Starfire and Wrath. This will also scale as you improve Starfire and Wrath with talents. Hope that makes sense. As Resto, you'd be trying to get hold of Life Bloom, which reduces the global cooldown of your Rejuve and Life Bloom abilities by half a second, and you gain the Life Bloom ability. So that means you haven't got to worry about getting haste capped, which obviously you can't anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant, but obviously getting the haste cap in Wrath is an important thing to bring your GCD down to 1 second so you can blanket more people with more hots. You get that from a rune. But then you also do get Life Bloom, which heals the target for 45 over 7 seconds, and when Life Bloom completes its duration or is dispelled, the target instantly heals for 91, and the Druid regains half the cost of the spell, and this effect can stack up to 3 times. You can see a lot of melee weaving Resto Druids because of clear casting in the Boomy tree. Actually, as Feral, this is quite a decision to be made here, even though it probably looks pretty obvious. Skull Bash. You charge to a target within 13 yards and bash the target's skull, interrupting spellcasting and preventing any spell in that skull from being cast for 2 seconds. We all know Skull Bash comes in Kata. It's nice being a Feral with an interrupt. It does require talent points to actually reduce the cooldown down to 10 seconds, because ordinarily Skull Bash by default is actually 1 minute. What it looks like in Season of Discovery, I don't know. I don't know if any of you have tried it. If you have, let me know in the comments whether it was 10 seconds or a minute cooldown. But that would be something I'd actually like to have as Feral DPS. But my choice is going to be taken away from me, really, because Savage Roar is the final leg rune, where this is a finishing move that increases physical damage done by 30% while in cat form, and it lasts longer per combo point. So 1 point is 14 seconds, all the way up to 5 points, which is 34 seconds. We're all familiar with Savage Roar. It's not something new. It's that buff that you just have to maintain, and it's interesting they use the Wrath of the Lich King version. So if you're not aware, the Wrath of the Lich King version increases all damage by 30%. So bleeds, everything will benefit from it. Whereas when you go into Cataclysm, Savage Roar actually only affects auto attack damage. So we got the better version of it, I would say. I'm saying we, like I'm going to be a Feral. I'm not going to be a Feral to my second character. I'm going to be Paladin first. But yeah, a really interesting version of Savage Roar to get, I think. So as a Druid, having Wind Fury, Savage Roar, Mangle, being able to pump bleeds and Shred actually doing good damage because you're keeping Mangle up, it's going to be a really, really interesting season to play a Feral Druid. Oh, any Druid. Sorry, any Druid. I shouldn't fixate on Feral just because I'm biased, but yeah. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. We're going to work through all of these runes. I'd love to just do them all at once, but because I like to give a bit of context around each of the runes, the video would be like 2 hours long, and I hope you enjoy them. So I'll see you on the next one.